I think the Highlander franchise thrives on mystery, and I can't say it's a bad idea for a fantasy sci-fi series to keep the fans guessing, be it on the subject of the first immortal, or their exact origins, or the nature of the quickening and the ultimate prize. Some things are really up for the interpretation of the viewers. As far as the quickening is concerned, I have been intrigued by what it really means, and I have tried to find the answers across the movies, TV shows, and comic books. But even the behind-the-scenes official definition from the makers is not conclusive enough. So in this video, I have taken it upon myself to explain the quickening phenomenon in the best possible way for you to have a better understanding of the concept. Now, I find it important to point out that the quickening does not have a consistent portrayal in the franchise. It would be simpler had it been one clean single mechanic, but when the Highlander characters talked about the quickening, they're usually pointing to some overlapping things. The first meaning of the term quickening is put rather subtly in the original movie, when the immortals are described as carrying the seed of immortality within them, with traits that remain latent until their first death. They even have a sixth sense-like feeling called the buzz that allows them to sense the presence of other immortals in the vicinity. After the first death, the immortals enter an awakened state, and maybe the quickening is activated in a way because then comes the most vital part of the quickening, the absorption. So when it came to the possibility of death for an immortal, the producers were quite blunt and definitive. An immortal can only be killed by beheading, and one who kills them receives their power, essence, and knowledge through a mystical process which is called the Quickening. I still remember the mysterious electrical storm in the first film when Connor killed an immortal in a parking lot. It was presented as a sudden burst of energy that was absorbed by Connor, the winner, and the impact was such that it affected the electrical equipment and cars in the immediate surroundings. I can also recall a moment during Connor's training with the experienced immortal Ramirez in the movie, where Ramirez pushed him into feeling the living world. Thus, I find the term having a wide range of meaning, and it's certainly more than the life force absorption. Maybe you can understand it as a heightened and mystical sensitivity achieved by an immortal that's passed on to another who kills the individual. Now that we're done with the technicalities, let us understand how quickening really works, step by step. If you're a fan of the franchise, you already know that an immortal can die many times, but only death is final. They can heal from the worst of injuries, but decapitation is where their powers draw a line, and it's marked as the final death. As far as the game is concerned, it is all about immortals dueling each other until only one remains. I have already explained how the quickening works and how the victor receives the loser's quickening, which is like gaining points in a video game.
You win.
With each kill, an immortal becomes stronger than before, and someone like the Kurgan is almost invincible because he's killed so many over the decades and absorbed their quickening. Also, it is not just raw power, but overall awareness and knowledge that keeps increasing, and the experience can be frightening, especially when dueling is against an immortal who is relatively green. To put it simpler words, after each quickening, an immortal gains more of the qualities that make them powerful and dangerous in the first place. But is an immortal born with the quickening? Or does it awaken after the first resurrection? Well, I would have to say both based on the lore and what I have learned canonically. The immortals have the seed of their true powers within them since their existence, and this ability is what allows them for their resurrection and healing after their first death. However, it is not fully activated until the first awakening. And when someone is as lucky as Connor to have a guide like Ramirez guiding him, the quickening strengthens further. You can see it like this. If the Kurgan kills an immortal who is yet to learn about their true nature, he doesn't gain much, which is what we saw during their first battle in the Scottish Highlands. It is only after killing the more aware and experienced ones that the absorption is truly impactful and beneficial. This might be a very personal observation, but I find the quickening to be somewhat addictive in nature. The power-hungry immortals like the Kurgan that we have seen across the franchise simply cannot stop even after killing several others and attaining their entire life force. It almost acts like a drug that they need constantly until there's nothing left and they are the last ones standing. A comic book series also sheds light on this topic when we find out that even Connor is not free from this addictive pull. After absorbing the Kurgan's quickening, he finds something dark within himself and unknowingly goes on a rampage, attempting to kill other immortals that included his brother Duncan as well. There are some fan theories that talk about something called a dark quickening, which is basically what an immortal gains after absorbing the essence of an evil immortal. The Kurgan was so corrupted and evil that absorbing his quickening had a negative impact on Connor, and he had to sort it out for himself before it completely took over. But if the rules for the immortals are clearly laid out, what about the scenario where a mortal is able to kill an immortal? Well, the answer can be found in the TV series. If a mortal somehow manages to decapitate an immortal, there is no quickening for them to absorb. So quickening is not just about the massive burst of energy that is released, but also about the absorption. And in the absence of any immortal to absorb it, the whole thing is wasted. Mortals were not capable of retaining this otherworldly power. I have also observed that there are two clearly different types of quickening, at least in terms of the way it is absorbed. The first one comes from any random duel between two immortals that leaves one of them decapitated. The winner absorbs his quickening, and as we have seen multiple times in the movies, it looks like a violent lightning storm, such as is intensity of the energy released and absorbed. Even the one absorbing left shaken momentarily, but he emerges empowered and stronger than before. However, there is another kind of quickening that is probably reserved for the ultimate duel to determine the winner of the game. In the original film, the story was framed such that Connor and the Kurgan were the last ones standing, and the climactic duel between them ended with the death of the Kurgan. What followed was very different from the earlier quickening absorption. Connor did not just get stronger, but it achieved some cosmic godlike powers in the aftermath. In his own words, he then felt everything, knew everything, and became everything. He could read people's thoughts and know everything there was to know about the world. And the best way I can explain this incredible powers is that the movie tried to show this is the ultimate prize. Even his nature changed and became a mortal capable of fathering children, which made me wonder if the ultimate prize for immortality was mortality. I think the most striking part of the final win for Connor in the movie was his godlike connection to humanity and the universe, which meant that he could use his powers to make the world a better place, and that is exactly what he intended to do. I saw it as centuries of muscle memory, acquired experience and knowledge, combat and abilities and training, all absorbed as a massive burst of energy. Can I say that the quickening is more of a universal life force that the mortals are oblivious to? The transfer system is reserved strictly for the immortals, and maybe they have something about their unique autonomy that allows them to retain the same. I couldn't give you a more specific answer without detailed study of the immortal physiology. And as I said earlier, the franchise purposely keeps some mysterious and does not explain more than necessary.
But the Ancient One guarding the source.
Another question that has often troubled me is what happens to the whole quickening ritual on holy ground? We all know the basic rule of immortal combat, where no fighting allowed on holy ground, and this is a law even the most evil immortals like the Kurgan do not violate. But what happens if someone did fight on holy ground and behead another immortal? The closest actual evidence that we have on this can be seen in Highlander 3, where fighting on a sacred site is associated with certain ominous effects, and the battle breaks off almost like something pushes back. My understanding of the impact on holy ground on immortals is that this area is treated like a neutral zone because it's a space of shared human meaning. If we understand the quickening as a supreme universal force that unites all living things, then holy ground are probably where the unity is honored and not harvested. In fact, if an immortal did violate this ultimate rule, they would, in likelihood, gain nothing at all. I will end with what is probably the biggest question of them all. Who or what created the quickening, and is there a limit to how much an immortal can absorb? Unfortunately, I don't have a concrete answer for the first one because the lore never explains the origins. That being said, I can understand if there is no specific creator for this, and it just works as a natural law in the universe, such as the indestructible nature of energy that can neither be created nor destroyed. Even Ramirez didn't have an answer to this, and he simply resorted to philosophy, asking back, does the sun come up? And this again points to the universal nature of this. As for the upper limit to absorbing the quicken, there is none, because theoretically an immortal can continue as long as another exists in the world. However, there can be a negative impact on an immortal for absorbing too much of an evil immortal's quickening over time, if you can call that a limit at all. I know the whole concept of quickening can be quite abstract because there's not one simple answer, but I hope the video helped you understand it better. I would love to hear what other questions you may have on the topic, and also share your feedback on the theories around the quickening that I discussed here in the comments below.